It was supposed to be a normal business trip. 3 days in Chicago, wrapping up a major client account, then back to my comfortable suburban home outside of Seattle. My wife Sarah had even seemed supportive when I mentioned the trip, enthusiastic even. "You deserve this opportunity, James," she'd said, kissing me on the cheek as I packed my suitcase. "Don't worry about anything here, I'll take care of everything." I should have paid more attention to that gleam in her eye. Sarah and I had been married for 7 years. High school sweethearts who managed to stay together through college. We tied the knot right after graduation. She was beautiful, long chestnut hair, green eyes that crinkled when she laughed, and a smile that could light up a room. I thought we had built something special together. Our 3-bedroom house in the suburbs represented everything we'd worked for: stability, success, the foundation for our future family. The signs had been there for months, but I'd ignored them. The late nights at work, the new wardrobe, the sudden password changes on her phone, the way she tilted her screen away whenever I walked into the room. Classic red flags that I dismissed because I trusted her, because I loved her, because I couldn't imagine Sarah, my Sarah, betraying me. I boarded my flight to Chicago on a Tuesday morning. The client meetings went better than expected, and by Wednesday evening we'd closed the deal. My boss was ecstatic. "Take Thursday off," he told me. "Fly home early and surprise that beautiful wife of yours." So I did. I caught the first flight back Thursday morning, eager to celebrate our success with Sarah. I hadn't told her I was coming home early. I wanted to surprise her with flowers and champagne. Maybe take her out to that fancy Italian restaurant she loved. I grabbed an Uber from the airport, flowers in hand. It was just past 2 p.m. when I pulled up to our house, and that's when I noticed it. Several cars parked in our driveway and along the street in front of our house. A silver BMW I recognized as belonging to Sarah's friend Julie, a red Audi that I'd seen before but couldn't place, and a black Mercedes I'd definitely never seen before. My stomach tightened. Maybe Sarah was hosting some kind of ladies' lunch, but she hadn't mentioned anything before I left, and why were there so many cars? I paid the Uber driver and walked up our pathway, the uneasy feeling growing stronger with each step. As I approached the front door, I could hear music coming from inside, not loud but distinct, the kind of playlist Sarah put on when she was in a mood. I inserted my key into the lock, turned it, and pushed the door open. The entryway was littered with shoes I didn't recognize, men's shoes. Different sizes, at least 3 pairs, women's high heels tossed carelessly aside, empty wine bottles on the console table, a man's jacket draped over the banister, and then I heard it: laughter. Female laughter coming from our living room, and deeper voices, male voices. I stood frozen in the hallway, the flowers dangling from my suddenly numb fingers. Part of me wanted to turn around, get back in an Uber, and pretend I'd never come home early, but I couldn't. I needed to know. I moved silently down the hallway toward the living room. The door was partially open, and through the gap I could see movement, bodies, skin, my wife's voice saying something I couldn't quite make out, followed by more laughter. I pushed the door open. What I saw will be forever burned into my memory. Our living room had been transformed into some kind of party scene. Bottles of champagne and wine scattered across every surface, clothing strewn about, and people half-dressed, some barely dressed at all, lounging on our furniture, our floor, the throw pillows I'd bought Sarah for her birthday last year. And there, in the center of it all, was my wife, Sarah, wearing nothing but lingerie I'd never seen before, straddling a man I didn't recognize while another had his hands all over her. The room fell silent when they noticed me standing in the doorway, flowers in hand, suitcase still by the front door. 5 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me in shock, 2 men, 3 women, including my wife. Sarah's face drained of color. "James," she gasped, scrambling off the man's lap, "you're supposed to be in Chicago." "Clearly," I said, my voice sounding distant and foreign to my own ears. "What the hell is this, Sarah?" The other couples, Julie and her husband Luke, whose red Audi was outside, I now realized, and a man and woman I'd never met before, were hurriedly grabbing clothes, avoiding eye contact, mumbling excuses. "This isn't, I mean, we were just," Sarah stammered, reaching for a throw blanket to cover herself. "Don't bother lying," I said, a strange calm settling over me despite the chaos in my mind. "I can see exactly what this is." "You weren't supposed to be home until tomorrow," she said, as if that explained or excused anything. I looked around the room, my living room in my house, that I had worked countless hours to afford, now defiled by whatever depraved activity had been going on. I noticed details in a detached, almost clinical way, the way the furniture had been rearranged, the sex toys on the coffee table, the used condom wrappers scattered on the floor. "How long has this been happening?" I asked quietly. Sarah looked at Julie, who was hastily buttoning her blouse. No one would meet my eye. It's not what you think," Sarah tried again. "How long, Sarah?" "A few months," she finally admitted, her voice small. "But it's just physical. It doesn't mean anything. Just physical. Doesn't mean anything." As if that made it better somehow. As if the fact that my wife was sleeping with other men, and apparently women too, in our home, on our furniture, while I was away working to support us, was somehow acceptable as long as she didn't have feelings for them. "Everyone needs to leave," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Now." There was a flurry of activity as the others gathered their belongings. No one spoke to me, no one could even look at me. They filed past me one by one, heads down, shuffling out the door. Julie paused briefly, started to say something, then thought better of it and hurried out, and then it was just Sarah and me. She had managed to put on a robe, my robe, I noted with a fresh surge of anger, and was standing in the middle of the living room, tears streaming down her face. "James, please," she began. "Let me explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "How you've been cheating on me, how you've been bringing people into our home, our bed, when I'm not here. What exactly is there to explain, Sarah?" "It's just, we've been together so long," she said. "I felt trapped, I needed excitement, something different. And you couldn't talk to me about that. You decided that turning our house into, whatever this is, was the solution." "I didn't know how to tell you," she cried. "You're so conventional, you wouldn't understand." I laughed then, a hollow sound that contained no humor. "You're right, I don't understand. I don't understand how the woman I've loved for 10 years, the woman I've built a life with, could betray me like this." I turned and walked out of the living room, up the stairs to our bedroom. Sarah followed me, calling my name, pleading with me to stop and listen. I ignored her. Inside our bedroom, the room we had shared for 7 years, the bed where I had held her on nights when she couldn't sleep, where we had talked about our dreams for the future. I pulled my suitcase from the closet and began throwing clothes into it. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, hovering in the doorway. "What does it look like?" I replied without looking at her. "I'm leaving." "No, James, please," she begged, coming into the room and trying to grab my arm. "We can work this out. I'll stop, I promise. It was a mistake." I shook her off. "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill, Sarah. A mistake is burning dinner. This was a series of deliberate choices you made, over and over again." "Where will you go?" she asked, her voice small. "That's not your concern anymore," I said, zipping up the suitcase. I took off my wedding ring and placed it on the dresser. "I'll be back for the rest of my things when you're not here." "You can't just leave," she said, panic rising in her voice. "We need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about," I said, pushing past her and heading back downstairs. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." "James, stop," she cried, grabbing at my sleeve. "Think about what you're doing. Think about our history, everything we've built together." I paused then, turning to look at her, really look at her. The woman I had loved since I was 18 years old. The woman who had just shattered my heart into a million pieces. "I'm not the one who threw it all away, Sarah," I said quietly. "You did that, and for what? For excitement? Was it worth it?" The look on her face told me everything I needed to know. She hadn't expected consequences. She had thought I would never find out, or if I did, that I would forgive her, that I wouldn't have the strength to walk away. She had always underestimated me. I walked out the front door without looking back, got into my car and drove away. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there another minute. I ended up at a hotel near the airport, anonymous, impersonal. As far removed from the life I'd built with Sarah as possible. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My phone buzzed constantly, texts and calls from Sarah. I ignored them all. Eventually, I called the one person I knew I could trust, my older brother, Mike. He lived about an hour away, divorced himself after his ex-wife had cheated on him 5 years earlier. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, little brother," he said cheerfully. "Thought you were in Chicago?" "I was," I said, my voice rough. "I came home early, found Sarah with other people." A beat of silence. "Shit," Mike said finally. "I'm coming to get you. Where are you?" I gave him the name of the hotel. An hour later, he was knocking on my door. One look at my face and he pulled me into a crushing hug. "I'm so sorry, man," he said. "I don't know what to do," I admitted, the words catching in my throat. "Right now, nothing," Mike said firmly. Right now you come home with me, get some sleep, and we'll figure it out tomorrow. So that's what I did. I went to Mike's place, crashed in his spare room, and tried not to think about Sarah or what I'd seen. Tried not to imagine how many times it had happened before. Tried not to wonder if our entire marriage had been a lie. The next morning over coffee, Mike helped me think through my next steps. You need a lawyer, he said bluntly. A good one. Whatever you do, don't move back into that house. It establishes that you're willing to work it out. I'm not, I said firmly. I know that, Mike replied, but Sarah might try to convince you otherwise, and when that doesn't work, things could get ugly. He was right. I called in sick to work, then spent the day researching divorce attorneys. Found one with excellent reviews who specialized in cases involving infidelity. I made an appointment for the following day. Sarah kept calling and texting. I finally responded with a single message: I'm safe. Don't contact me again. All communication should go through my attorney. Then I blocked her number. The meeting with the lawyer, Catherine Reeves, went as well as could be expected. I explained the situation, including walking in on Sarah's party. Catherine's expression remained professional, but I could see the sympathy in her eyes. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, she explained, but given the circumstances and assuming you have a prenuptial agreement, we don't, I interrupted. We got married young. We didn't have anything to protect, Catherine nodded. That complicates things somewhat, but infidelity can still be considered by the court when determining property division, and the fact that she brought these activities into your shared home strengthens your case. I don't care about the money, I said. I just want out. I understand, Catherine said gently, but you've worked hard for what you have. You shouldn't have to start over with nothing because of her actions. I didn't have the energy to argue. I signed the paperwork authorizing Catherine to begin divorce proceedings, then went back to Mike's place and collapsed on the guest bed, emotionally drained. The next few days passed in a blur. Catherine filed for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences, citing Sarah's infidelity. She advised me to stay away from the house until we could negotiate temporary living arrangements. I agreed, even though it meant living out of a suitcase at my brother's place. Word got out, of course. A few friends called to check on me. My parents, who had always loved Sarah, were devastated but supportive. My boss, understanding the situation, gave me some time off. Then, 6 days after I'd walked out, Julie called me. Sarah's friend Julie, who had been part of the party I'd walked in on. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. What do you want, Julie? I asked coldly. To apologize, she said, her voice small, and to tell you something you should know. I think I've seen enough, I replied. It's worse than you think, Julie said. It wasn't the first time, James. My stomach lurched. I figured that out. No, I mean, Julie hesitated, these parties. Sarah's been hosting them for months, every time you go out of town. I closed my eyes, feeling sick. Why are you telling me this? Because I feel awful, Julie admitted. And because Sarah's telling everyone you knew about it, that you were okay with it, that you're only upset now because you're embarrassed about being caught watching. What? I gasped. That's a lie. I know, Julie said quietly, but she's convincing. She's shown people texts where you supposedly give her permission. She's saying you're abusive, that you forced her into this lifestyle and are now punishing her for it. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Those texts are fake, I said. I would never. I believe you, Julie said. That's why I'm calling. Luke and we got caught up in something we shouldn't have, but what Sarah's doing now, trying to ruin your reputation to save hers, it's wrong. After I hung up with Julie, I called Catherine immediately and told her what I'd learned. She sighed heavily. Unfortunately, this isn't uncommon, she said. When people are caught doing something inexcusable, they often try to rewrite the narrative to make themselves the victim. Do you have any evidence that could disprove her claims? I thought about it. Maybe, I said slowly. I travel for work pretty regularly. I always text Sarah when I land, when I get to the hotel, and we usually talk before bed. I should have those messages, and my work schedule would show when I was actually out of town. Good, Catherine said. Start gathering that evidence, and be prepared. If she's spreading these rumors to friends, she may try to use them in court as well. I hung up feeling angry and violated all over again. It wasn't enough that Sarah had cheated on me, invited strangers into our home, betrayed every promise she had ever made to me. Now she was trying to destroy my reputation too. That's when I decided I wasn't going to just walk away. I was going to fight back. I spent the next week meticulously documenting everything. I printed out all my travel itineraries for the past year. I downloaded my text history with Sarah, showing normal, loving exchanges during my business trips, no mentions or hints of any arrangement or permission. I even had our phone records, showing calls at times that contradicted her story. I also started reaching out to friends, real friends, people who had known us both for years. People who knew my character. One by one, I told them the truth. Not in a vindictive way, not to turn them against Sarah, but simply to set the record straight. Some had already heard Sarah's version. Others were shocked to learn about the infidelity at all. Most believed me, though a few seemed unsure. It hurt, knowing that some people I'd considered friends could think me capable of the things Sarah was accusing me of. Then I had an idea: our home security system. We had installed cameras the previous year after a series of break-ins in the neighborhood. They covered the front door, back door, and driveway. They wouldn't have captured what happened inside the house, but they would show who came and went and when. I logged into the security company's website using my credentials. Sarah might have changed the password, but she apparently hadn't thought of it. I was able to access months of stored footage. What I found confirmed everything Julie had told me and worse. Every time I traveled for work, every single time, cars would start arriving at our house within hours of my departure. Sometimes the same cars, sometimes different ones. Men and women entering our home, often staying late into the night or until the next morning. I downloaded all the footage and sent it to Catherine, who agreed it was compelling evidence against Sarah's claims. "This shows a clear pattern," she said, "and contradicts her story that you knew about or approved of these gatherings." Armed with this evidence, Catherine arranged a meeting with Sarah's attorney. I didn't attend, but Catherine called me immediately afterward. "Well, that was interesting," she said, a note of satisfaction in her voice. When I presented the security footage, Sarah's attorney asked for a break to confer with her client. When they returned, their tone had completely changed. They're now willing to discuss settlement terms. "What kind of terms?" I asked. "Very favorable ones," Catherine replied. "Sarah will move out of the house. She's agreeing to an unequal division of assets in your favor, and she's willing to sign a non-disparagement agreement, legally barring her from spreading false information about you." I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "She's backing down." "Completely," Catherine confirmed, "my guess." She realized her lies weren't going to hold up in court, and a judge would be far less sympathetic after seeing that footage. We finalized the divorce settlement 2 weeks later. Sarah got the Mercedes I'd bought her for our 5th anniversary and a modest cash settlement. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and most of our joint savings. The non-disparagement clause was ironclad. If Sarah violated it, she'd forfeit her entire settlement. I saw Sarah only once during this process at the final signing. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. The confident, vivacious woman I had married was gone, replaced by someone who couldn't meet my eye. She tried to talk to me afterward, to apologize, I think, but I walked away. There was nothing left to say. With the divorce finalized, I focused on rebuilding. I sold the house, too many bad memories, and bought a condo closer to work. I threw myself into my job, earning a promotion. I started going to the gym regularly, took up rock climbing, made new friends. Slowly, I began to heal. About a year after the divorce, I ran into Julie at a coffee shop. I almost walked out when I saw her, but she caught my eye and approached hesitantly. "James," she said, "how are you?" "Better," I replied honestly. "You?" "Divorced," she said with a wry smile. "Turns out Luke had been cheating with Sarah long before that party. When I found out, I left him." I wasn't surprised. "I'm sorry," I said, and meant it. Julie shook her head. "Don't be, I needed the wake-up call." She paused. "Have you heard from her?" "Sarah, no," I said. "Last I heard, she moved to Portland." Julie nodded. "She tried to keep the parties going after you left, but people started distancing themselves when they realized you really hadn't known or approved." "Her reputation," Julie trailed off. "Let's just say she burned a lot of bridges." I felt a twinge of satisfaction at that, followed by a wave of sadness for the woman Sarah had become, or maybe had always been, beneath the surface. "I should go," I said, not wanting to revisit that chapter of my life any longer than necessary. "Of course," Julie said. "Take care of yourself, James." "You too," I replied, and walked out into the bright Seattle afternoon, leaving the past where it belonged behind me. 2 years after the divorce, I met Allison at a friend's dinner party. Smart, funny, genuine in a way that made me realize how much artifice there had been in my relationship with Sarah. We took things slow. I was cautious, careful with my heart, but Allison was patient, understanding the scars I carried. On our 1-year anniversary, she asked me if I ever regretted how things had ended with Sarah. Not the ending, I told her honestly. That was inevitable once I saw the truth, but I regret not seeing the signs earlier. I regret the years I spent loving someone who didn't really exist. Allison took my hand. I'm sorry you went through that, she said, but I'm not sorry it led you here. To me, I smiled, feeling the last pieces of my heart finally heal. Neither am I. Sometimes, life's worst moments lead us exactly where we need to be. My wife threw a cheating party at our house. She didn't expect me to come home early. She didn't expect me to find the strength to leave. She didn't expect me to fight back when she tried to destroy my reputation. But I did all those things, and in doing so, I found my way to a better life and a love that was real, honest, and true.